Of all the things that you can resell, white label websites are probably the number one most lucrative, rewarding, and central of all services when it comes to selling something that has upsell potential and a future potential to build a really, really lucrative client base. Having said that, it's something that you cannot enter into lightly. Now, since 2011, we have been furnishing clients with white label reselling services. We've been in this industry for a very long time, and we know it very well. We understand the sales process. We understand the training process. We understand the process of support and all the client back and forth and all of the development nuance involved. So we really get it when it comes to white label websites. Now, having said that, it's very important when you go into white label websites, when you make the decision that this is something you're going to resell, that you do your utmost to vet and work with very solid developers. I would even say you should only work with domestic developers, and here's why. The number one problem or pitfall that people run into when it comes to white label web development and selling it is that there are situations where you sell a client, you take money from them, right? Maybe you sell a site for $2,000 and they give you half down, they give you $1,000. So you go and you have a developer, located wherever, and you're going to pay that person X amount of money. Maybe they agree to do the work for $1,000. So you pay them $500. Except you don't get a website. They just leave. That leaves you with a shortfall of $500 to cover. That's if you just want to give the money back to the client. What a lot of people do in that situation is they double down. They quickly rush and find another developer and pay them even more money. And what can happen is you can wind up quickly in a situation where the site is either tremendously delayed or not delivered at all, and the client is expecting it. And if you don't have the money to cover that, you're in a really bad legal situation. You basically just committed a scam. Now, you might not have done it on purpose, but the end result is that you took money for something you can't deliver. It's a scam. You don't ever want to be in that situation. And that's why it's crucial to find a developer that you can really work with and you really trust and you really know is going to do the job. The other side of this is that quality varies tremendously, developer to developer and company to company. A lot of times, low prices when it comes to outsourcing web development looks like a really good bargain. However, at the end of the day, you end up paying more because you end up having to go for draft after draft after draft. The other side of this is there's a lot of hidden theft going on when it comes to outsourcing web development. A lot of websites nowadays, are built on WordPress or built on a variety of different platforms that have themes which cost money and require licensing. A lot of times when you outsource web development to a third party, somebody, located wherever, they go and they just steal the theme that they're going to implement for your client. This means that the theme doesn't have support, doesn't have updates, and it's subject to just shutting down at random, based upon whether or not code snippets, which were there to stop theft, end up getting activated or not and taking down the website. You also have the potential for security holes and issues with that, where developers develop sites where they're fishing for, usernames and passwords of registered users. I'm not saying this will happen, but it can happen, and it does happen all the time. One of the things we've been privy to as a company is basically walking behind all the messes that have been created out there and cleaning them up. Basically, anybody who's a pro web developer, I don't care who it is, if you talk to them, they are constantly involved in cleaning up the mess created by people who chased down the cheapest web developer they could find and wound up with getting themselves a site which doesn't age well, has huge problems of all types. Security problems, update problems, theme problems, graphic design issues, files that are not compressed. You'll end up having somebody put an image on the homepage that's like 5 megabytes, and it loads so slow on a smartphone that it like locks up browsers. There's all kinds of issues that you have when you're talking about outsourcing something that is so delicate, essentially. Web development is filled with nuance. It's filled with delicate things that need to be done correctly and professionally. And when you go and you decide to resell it, you really need to do your homework about who is doing the development and also what that process looks like. The last but not least is process. When you are dealing with somebody that's building a site for you, you have to have a relationship in terms of communications where you can send an email or send a message or make a phone call and get somebody to respond really quickly, because you can wind up in situations where your client's locked out of the site, or your client's having hosting issues, or your client's website is having problems. All kinds of situations arise like that, and you need to be able to communicate with the developer, not just during the development process, but afterwards. And that's another thing that is a major problem. Going beyond communications and the problems that you can have with various companies in terms of communications are the issues after development has ceased with where is the site living and who is supporting that website. If you follow a sort of typical model is, a WordPress site that's thrown up on its own hosting, right? What'll happen is you have a VPS account, right? Very common. Shared hosting, 1,000 websites on one server. You get that little sliver of time and sliver of access that the website lives on. If there's a problem with the site, let's say it's WordPress, it needs to have routine security patches, updates. It needs maybe its theme updated. It needs plugins updated. There's things that need to be done. The database needs to be pruned, whatnot. If those things are not being done, if the site's not being maintained, in other words, the site ages and it becomes decrepit and basically starts to dysfunction in fairly short order. Not saying it happens overnight, but it's fairly quickly. Well, what happens when you have a developer that's, say, a soloist, and they go get a job and they're no longer available to work on the site? Well, you have to go and find somebody else to do that maintenance. Is this person you're finding trustworthy? Can they work on a weekly, monthly basis? Whatever the time frame is. A lot of the time they can't. Then you have the aspect of designers, right? Designers, typically are not developers whatsoever. So you have some graphical element that you want a contract to have created, say, over on Fiverr. And then you're going to have this graphical element integrated into the website. Well, what do you do when you can't get it integrated because the developer is gone? You see where this is headed. It's a quagmire. That's why when you talk about reselling websites, you are far better off going with a consolidated provider. And I'm not saying just Rocket Driver. We're an excellent option. I stand behind our product. I stand behind our work 100%. However, there are other legitimate companies out there. You need to go with a legitimate company that specializes in white label websites. You should not go with somebody that's just doing this as a hobby or a side gig, for the simple fact that it can leave you hanging and you can't build a business on somebody's part-time effort. It's just not responsible. Anyhow, that's going to conclude this video. If you like this and you want more tips about the white label industry and web development and related subjects, feel free to subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you.